Hi, I'm McKay and I'm the creator of Matrix Therapies, and today I wanted to talk about the Saboteur, the Charmer and the Trickster. And we had a question from one of our viewers about those three and just wanted me to explain a little bit more about them. So we call these shadow selves. So they're basically archetypes which are in shadow, so they're not in the positive or working for people. So all of these, the saboteur, which is the the part of us that sabotages our success and stops us doing things, it's often the part of us that makes us procrastinate. Then the charmer is the part of us that isn't real or authentic, but it's just there to charm other people, and it uses its ability to charm in order to distract people from what's really going on or how the person's really feeling. And finally, there's the trickster. And the trickster's one of my favorite shadows, if you can have a favorite shadow, when I work with people, because the trickster basically, makes you think of other things instead of what the real issue is. And it can mean that people avoid issues or they move sideways on issues. And the trickster has a particular feel. It's kind of quite a slippery feel. So if you're ever working with a client and suddenly you find yourself completely off track and you wonder what's going on when you had this idea of what was going to happen in the session. So I know I had one client where we were sitting there to do some goals, and we had done a lot of clearing, and the clearing had worked really well and everything was really going well in his life. And then we were sitting down to do some goals. And then suddenly he's like saying, oh, something hasn't cleared. And then when I asked him a little bit more about it, it was quite clear that that behavior had changed. But what he was doing was he was wanting to trick me, hold on to some things in the past or some old habit patterns, which had really already been cleared, so that he didn't need to set goals. And when you see behavior like that, and it takes a little while, you might find that you spend half an hour wasting time or even an hour wasting time, and you're wondering, well, what happened? Hang on a minute. You've said one thing and then you've said another thing, and everything you say doesn't really make sense. What is really going on? And in those circumstances, when you have that, I had another client one time where he was just very, very charming man. And he was sitting there being very charming towards me. And in the end, I needed to say to him, look, I get that you're really charming and we could not do coaching and we could just be friends, and then I could have a lovely, charming friend, and that would be great. But the thing is that if we're going to do coaching, I need to really see the aspects of you that aren't charming, the aspects of you that you might even consider to be ugly, that you never show anyone, because they're the aspects of you that are causing you problems and causing, difficulties in your life. The charmer is fine. The charmer's got everything sorted, but the charmer is preventing us from you being vulnerable and you showing me what is really going on and the things that aren't working for you. So if you want coaching, then really we need to get past the charmer, which is your social facade, and onto the things that are going to really make a difference. So they're some of these shadows, and really in the end, all of the shadows are just a protective mechanism. They're part of secondary gain. So secondary gain is where somebody has got an outcome from their negative behavior or from wasting time or from procrastinating, and that outcome is usually a form of safety. So say with the guy who set the goals, maybe he'd been disappointed with goals. Maybe there was something he really wanted, like a relationship, but he wasn't able to get it, and that was causing him a lot of pain. So then he wants to avoid the whole goal setting process altogether because he wants to avoid that pain. So we really need to be able to get past the trickster and find that place of pain and heal that, so that we can move on and start doing the goal setting if he's really going to make profound and deep change. Same with the charmer. We need to get past the social facade and into the vulnerability, the aspect of him. And what we found out there were two aspects. There was a part of him that didn't feel good enough, and he was covering that up with the charmer. And then there was also a part of him that felt incredibly powerful, and he thought that people wouldn't like him if they saw just how powerful he was. And so the charmer was just preventing him from really going forward and really doing the things he really wanted to do in his life and giving speeches, because he thought if he did that, maybe people would see just how powerful he was, but also that his own lack of self-worth may be exposed. And the same with the saboteur. Usually the saboteur is sabotaging something that you want because it's afraid. It's afraid you might get that thing, or it's afraid that you won't get that thing and be disappointed. So all of these, the saboteur, the trickster, and the charmer, are all forms of protective mechanisms. So it's really good if we can get a hold of them and move through them. So one of the things that's my favorite thing to do, and we call it shadow selves work, and it is a part of some of the advanced matrix training, and also some of our other trainings like co-creating the matrix, where you basically get that part and you have it sit in a seat. And the first thing you ask it, is what do you do for the person? And what would you like their day to be like if you were totally in charge the whole time? So it might be just always being charming to everybody and making sure you serve everyone, if it's the charmer. Or if it's the saboteur, it might be just sitting down and watching series after series of TV and not doing anything. Or if it's the trickster, it might be just having fun and, never doing any work or something like that. Or never really saying anything that exposes yourself. So you just ask the shadow self, how would they like the day to be if they were in charge? What would it be like? And then you might ask them, so how long have you been around for? When did you first show up, and why did you show up? And it might be 6 years old and they showed up, they had to be charming so that their mum liked them. Or they had to, when they were a teenager, they had to be tricky so they could do what they wanted instead of what other people wanted. And then when you've got that age, you can ask the shadow self if it's got anything else it wants to tell you. If not, that's great. You sit back into the chair. And now you've got that age, then you can just do simple matrix therapies, negative clearing or negative belief, just on that child. So you just basically say, okay, let's go, close your eyes, go back in time until you can meet your 6-year-old and talk to the 6-year-old what's going on, and just do normal matrix therapies, the normal matrix therapy script. So that way you can really make a big difference, because often these shadow selves have a profound effect on the person's life and go across many, many different areas. So we find that if you can get the shadow self out, most people are trying to suppress or fight their shadow selves, but usually the shadow self has a deep vulnerability there, which is usually an inner child. And if the inner child is healed and sees that they can get safety, or they can get people liking them, or they can get other things in many ways, not just stuck in the charmer or the saboteur or the trickster, that makes a big difference to many, many areas of their life. So that's that. There are many other shadow selves. There's the pusher, the pleaser, there's the protector, there's the controller, there's the perfectionist. There's quite a number of other shadow selves that we can do work with. And a lot of the concepts around shadow selves is based on subpersonalities by Stone, who does work with that. So you might also want to look up that. What we found is that when we use matrix therapies in combination with simplified aspects of subpersonalities, we can get some really quick results, and that go very, very deeply and have complete resolution, rather than the shadow self still being up and out and not resolved. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it.